Welcome to Real Talk with Jill and Tia. We are so happy to have you join us.
We are. It's Wednesday. It's
Yep,
Wednesday.
midweek. That's when we're always
Midweek.
here, right? Same time, same place.
And it's a great time. It's a great time midweek because typically, well, let me just say for me, by Wednesday, I feel like I've used up a lot of my brain power
Mhm.
and I'm like coasting to the end of the week, right? So this kind of like energized me on like, okay, what are some other things I can think on for the rest of the week or do, right? Today we're talking about doing something,
Yes.
right? What is something I can do to still make an impact on the second half of my week?
Right, because by Wednesday, I mean like we've cleaned out all the things from the weekend or the beginning of the week that are really like vying for all of our attention. And Wednesday, that's why we have this on Wednesday. It's kind of the
Yeah.
moment to take a breath, join us, like let's have some just real talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what's happening in our industry, what's happening with us, what's happening, right? Just collectively, what's going on so that we can all get better together.
Yes, yes. So, welcome. We're so happy that you're here with us today. We want to see you. So, say hello in the comments and let us know where you are watching from and whether or not you're watching on replay or live by using hashtag replay.
Mhm. Yeah, and really get on in there and do it because, like, this whole show is about it's time to do something. So
Oh,
jump in there, put things in the comment. Like,
yes,
what
yes.
does do something? What drew you in with that title?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I think we're all searching for a little action, right? Like when we think about where we are and where we need to be in the future, like we know we have to do something to get there. And sometimes people just struggle with what to do.
We do. And, I think the other part that makes this such a timely topic is I've heard people who are like, gosh, it's September and we have just 3 months to the finish line for the end of the year. Because so many organizations use like the calendar years, fiscal year, goals, all of that. They're like, we only have 3 months to get everything done. And it's this check to go, we're not as far as we thought we were going to be. And
hmm
so now it's time to do something.
Yeah. And we've all been there where the first half of the year, right, we're not doing anything. We're talking, we're discussing, we're aligning, but we haven't actually done anything, right? So we are here to challenge you today. It's time to do something. And
Mhm.
when we talk about doing something, we're talking about being better leaders, right? Being a better leader for your team, for yourself, for your organization, so that you can produce better business results.
Yeah. And I love that it comes in different shapes and forms
Oh, yeah.
because it might be like, gosh, how do I become a better leader? But I've also talked to people who are like, our team is getting inundated with requests because everybody else is realizing the end of the year is coming up and they all need our help too in some way,
Oh,
shape, or form.
yes. Oh,
And
yes.
so when we think about doing something, it may even involve like, how do I lead so that I create boundaries? I look at workload
Yes.
capacity. I think about alignment or expectations, or
Yeah.
there's a lot of other factors that go into it because
Mm-hmm.
we only have so much time, energy, money, investment.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And
Often we
we
cannot
want
do all the requests coming in.
Right, exactly. You're absolutely right. I feel like especially in food safety and quality, right? Where we touch all pieces of the business. And so people are coming to us, right? Like we need to get this done, we need to get this done, we need to get this done. Right? Those boundaries are so important. So
It
important.
is. But I think that's also the part that we bring and we offer to you and invite you to think about like how are you're the owner of all of it.
Yeah.
You are the owner sitting in here. Like all the
Mhm.
action is the action that you're creating and that you're doing
Yeah.
for where
Yeah.
you want to be. There was this quote. So, right, you all know probably because we've talked about this. My kids are in sports, and I'm always like mentally coaching them. I'm the mental coach on this side, mental toughness.
I love
And the
it.
other day, actually, it was an Olympic athlete. I wish I knew who it was who said, "You want to be a champ? You better act like a champ."
Ooh.
And I was like, "Well, that's good."
Yeah.
I shared that with my kids, but it also applies here,
Yeah, it does. It
right?
does, right? It's like I feel like that's a mindset shift,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, it shifts you from I just want to be in this like nebulous idea dream to like you better start doing something.
Yes. Yes. Ooh, I like that quote.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Put that one up. I like that. Because it's true, right? You have to step into that. You have to do something, right? You have to act like a champ.
We do. And today I think what our audience, part of what we want to share and touch on is that last month we worked with QA and Food Safety Magazine to do the cover story on leadership.
Yes.
They had done a poll and they needed to put context to what do these answers mean? What do
Mm-hmm.
these responses need? And so we helped highlight the responses, put context to to those responses, and really part of what we saw was like people need to move from thinking about
Yeah.
being a better leader and what culture is going to look like to actually like you
Yeah.
gotta
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. You have to put in that action. You have to start,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's one of the foundations of Catalyst, right? Like if you haven't joined us before, hello.
Oh yeah,
We
hello.
are co-founders at Catalyst, and that's what we do. We're all about operationalizing your culture, operationalizing your leadership.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about acting, doing something, right? Many times we talk to people and they've done surveys or they have all this data, but they still haven't done anything, right, to either move how people are feeling at the organization or to tackle some of those big issues that people are trying to tell them, right, that they're
Mm-hmm.
having. That's where we help. That's where we help organizations on is the act, the do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very relevant for us to be talking about that today because that's how we partner with organizations to kind of take this data or information that you might know or have heard or have some data points on to how do we act on it? How do we operationalize it? How do we actually start seeing the results that we want to see?
Yeah. And and from our article, I'm going to read part of what we had. I'm not going to read you a night story, but we said one of the foremost challenges continuously identified by food safety professionals is securing buy-in and understanding of food safety from everyone within the organization, from
Mm,
upper management to frontline employees. There remains a disconnect in food safety culture between the strategic priorities of leadership and the
mm,
practical realities faced by those who execute.
mm. Yep.
Right? Like, let's pause with that for a moment. Like,
Yeah.
once again, we keep hoping and dreaming it gets better and doing little bits of something, but are they the action we need to do?
Yeah.
And like, we know you all got it in you. We know that you can help close this gap,
Yeah.
but it's what are the actions that are going to be impactful and
Yeah.
meaningful to get there?
Right, exactly. To really close this gap between this strategic priorities of leadership, right? And then I like the way it said, like the practical realities faced by those who execute. And yeah, it's like when we talk about like what we need to do, and I know we're going to step into this a lot more in the show today, but it's really around how do we get that information right to upper management or senior leadership? How do we get that information? How does senior leadership have the right skills and tools to be able to execute right for the people who are facing those realities every day in
Mm-hmm.
facilities or in our shops, right, in our convenience stores, wherever we happen to be.
Mm-hmm. And
So,
part of that's middle managers.
mm-hmm.
We middle managers are the forgotten band of team members because we don't think they're frontline workers, but yet they are the front line of supporting all the front line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
we're not supporting our middle managers to do things different, to do things better, to get us to the next spot, let me just say that's why you need to look at what's going on with frontline leaders. It's not
Absolutely.
frontline leaders, it's
Mm-hmm.
middle managers.
Right. Because they're the ones that's driving your culture.
Yeah.
Right? They're the ones that's translating what this vision and strategy is and driving it within the organization. And we know, right, unfortunately, that group is the least developed group of organizations. Like that, I mean, when we really think about culture, food safety culture, and the problems we have, right, with moving it forward, a lot of it stems right there. The group that's actually driving it do not have the necessary skills.
Mm-hmm. And so today we're going to talk about like how do we push past that? How do we get past the complacency of like, well, where we are is good enough. That just
Yes.
drives mediocrity. How
Yes.
do we embrace some of these challenges? How do we think bigger than ourselves? Because I'm guilty of like when I was leading before I had my epiphany of like, I need to be a better leader. Right then I thought, well, we're doing good enough. Like we're doing good enough. We're getting to our goals good enough. But
Yeah.
it wasn't good enough. I mean, it was just good enough. It wasn't awesome. Yes, we had a
Yeah.
great team, but we could do so much more. We could be so much
Yeah.
more impactful. We could have been so much more collaborative. And like, that's what we keep hearing from people when we're talking.
Yeah. Like when we talk about acting like a champ, right? A champ is not going to settle for good enough,
No,
right?
no,
They want
no.
the best. They want the best working relationships. They want to come to work energized and leave energized, right? So they can do
Yeah.
whatever it is they want to do outside of work and be the champ there. Like that's how people want to interact with work and home and our coworkers and our leaders. But we have to be willing to do something to make that change.
Yeah. Yeah. It actually reminds me of one of our client stories, Amy,
Yeah.
who, when she was stepping into a bigger role at a different company, like actually paused and said, I want better outcomes than I had in this last role.
Mm.
And I'm going to find a partner who's going to help me do that.
Yes.
Because recognizing like there were challenges, and you know how we all are. She too was like, if I'm leaving here, like I'm leaving all the problems here. But she was insightful enough to go, I know some of these are mine and they're
Yeah.
going to come with me.
Yes.
And unless I look at what those are and figure it out, I'm not going to have all the success that I want.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so I love this story because it's someone who is like, I am going to do something.
Yes.
Not only do I
Yes.
want to be a champ, I'm going to act like a champ.
Yes. Yes. You know, I think that kind of flows into our first point of like what prevents people from taking action, right? And we our first point is around overcoming these barriers. And in this story that you're giving of our client, that first step for her was that mindset shift of okay, I'm leaving this environment, I'm moving to the next, but I need to work on myself. I need to think about how am I contributing, right, to this environment that I'm leaving, and how do I make sure I work on myself so that I don't bring it with me to the new environment. And just that moment of I personally need to be better so I can have better outcomes. That's a shift, right? That's a shift. And it's
Yeah,
an important shift because it, like you said, it takes you down the path of actually doing something.
it does. And yeah, I don't know about you, Tia, but I remember growing up as a kid. I have a brother and sister. And right, we would squabble and meh, 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 meh. And I grew up on a farm. So like we had ownership of things, but obviously we're kids. We have
Right.
those moments where it's like, it's their fault.
Yes.
And
Yes.
my mom used to always say, it takes two to tango.
There we go.
And it wasn't till later that I realized, like, yeah, I was in that dance too.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
remember having that same thought when I was feeling challenged to move food safety initiatives forward.
Mm.
That like it's ops who's stopping us, it's supply chain who won't like hold suppliers accountable, it's this going on over here.
Yeah.
And it really took a moment and for me to shift the mindset to be like, it's not just them,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like it's part of this. I'm in this dance with them as well.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think that's important as we think about like, oh, we can't do anything until senior leaders get on board. Like,
yeah,
can you imagine the things like, just think about it. Like, think about working in a large organization and you are needing to do action, but you must wait until senior leadership. You would never get anything done.
no,
You just would not get things done because they have a job to do, right? Like they're busy, they have a job to do, they're doing things, and they really put you in place as a leader in the organization because they know that you can do this job, right? They sort of put you there to make these decisions. And so it doesn't mean that collaboration is not there, right? Informing larger issues get escalated, those type of things. So I do want to add the little asterisk. But if you're waiting for someone else to change so that your culture can change, you're going to be waiting for a very long time.
Yeah. I even invite you to think about how you respond in these situations, like in your home life versus work life.
Ooh,
So,
yeah.
for example, if you're like, I don't know, I need to wait for permission at work to get this or to get this question or to, to be able to invest in this equipment, whatever that is. At home, would you be like, well, I need to get permission to get a new dishwasher because ours is dying?
Right.
Or do I need to wait for permission to get the new shoes that I need because I've been walking and like they're worn out?
Right.
And I
Yeah.
know that seems small, but this is about mindset.
Yeah.
And if we think I'm an owner in my home life, right? We're the owner of our actions and what we're doing. What is it that when we go to work makes us step back from that?
Yeah.
Because that's one of the barriers about overcoming, like stepping in and doing something.
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely something to explore, right? On like, how are you showing up at home? And how does that translate to how you show up at work? And you're right, some people show up at home very differently than at work. And really, when we look at when you look at the landscape of what work was, right, we always tried to preach that, right? I'm like, oh, you're different at work, right, versus at home. But we all know, and just the shift in what employees need, we need to be able to be our authentic self at all moments of the day. And that makes us better people, better leaders, right? When we can be fully ourselves and step into that ownership and step into who we are, I mean, it's amazing what we can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you just imagine? Like, think about how that would feel to be in a space that you feel so safe, and not just safe like within your team, but within the organization.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Imagine a world like that.
Mm-hmm.
And some people can. Some people are like, I want that, right? I want that life. But one of the barriers that we see is I don't have time,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I want that life. I see it. I know it will be better, but I have so much going on,
Mm-hmm.
right? I feel like that is like a common barrier that we see.
It is. And I think that's always fascinating because we want something to be different, but we're not willing to make change or meaningful change.
Yes.
So, but here's the thing, you can.
You can.
And you all know logically, even though it's maybe hard to put into practice or seem hard, if I want to do things different, I have to carve out some space, or I have to have something go on pause or a different frequency for some amount of time until I decide whether or not that's serving me.
Yes. Yeah.
It doesn't mean forever. It doesn't mean like, gosh, to help myself move to have action so I can be the champ, that like everything back here stops.
Right. Right.
It just means we got to get into this discipline, into this routine, and into these habits and skills that help us be like a champ every day. And then like, which ones over here serve us in that mission?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. I also think about this analogy with the champ, which, I think sports is almost always a great analogy for things. But like, when you think about, do I have the time to get to being a champion? The people who are champions at one point, right, they were just lifting weights every day, right? Like, I even think about like in the marching band, right? We couldn't wait to get out on the field and march. But for the first 2 or 3 weeks, we were just learning music, playing. We're doing the basics, right? Even though we can see, oh, we can't wait to perform, right? Like, we can't wait to get out there. But you have to you have to do the time and learn the music and learn the steps, or gain the muscle, right, to be able to do a long jump, or, gain the balancing skills. Like, you have to do the work in order to get there. And I think that it's that shift again, on
Agree.
how do I put in some time every day to build these skills so that I can have the culture that I want to see, the relationships I want to have, the influence I want to have within the organization, or an insert right part of your life that you need to have more influence. But the barrier of time, right? You have to give yourself that, right? It's a gift.
You do. And you know what? We always think, time is like, I'm going to say that's the easy excuse. I don't
Yeah.
have time.
Yes.
That's what like comes off. That's like, how are you? I'm good. I'm fine. It
Right.
is the
Exactly.
auto response to anything. So I'm going to, I would challenge to have, it's not about, do you not have time? Like I always say, it's because I'm not committed to it. But the
Yeah.
reality is it's not a priority and I'm not committed to it,
Right. Yeah.
which
That
is really hard to swallow sometimes because I have things where I'm like, why isn't this getting better? And I'm like, yeah, Jill, you haven't made it a priority. So what do you think's going to happen?
right.
Magic going to come down on me and make it all better? That's not
Hmm.
true.
I think that's a great rephrase on I don't have time to, it's not important enough for me to commit to.
Yeah.
And I think if people start using different wording like that when it comes to culture, then we really start to see where priorities are.
Right.
Right. And I think that goes to another barrier that we see is that our leaders might be blocking movement.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things where we talk to people and they've identified almost that, oh, this person needs development.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if they have the time for it.
Yep.
Rephrase, this person needs development, but it's not important enough for me to commit to their development here. So we're going to continue to be with them the way that they are today.
Yes. And if you're sitting out there, you may be like, when does that happen? I just spoke to a leader last week who said, yeah, in our, bench strength succession planning, this person, they need some development over in this area. And I was like, well, what's your plan? And they're like, well, I don't have one. Like,
Yeah.
but you identified something that needs improvement. What's the next step?
Yeah.
Because if we are a leader, that means we are vested in other people's success.
Yeah.
And that's what we want. That's what we
Yes.
cultivate. So
Yes.
if we're not willing to step into that space, then why are we holding back? And what does that mean that we need to do so that we can fully be the leader that our team expects us to be and needs us
Yes.
to be?
Yes. We have a client who is signing up their members for boot camp, and one of them, which I don't even think I've told you this, but I won't say their name, but one of them was saying, okay, yes, we need to enroll one of our leaders into boot camp, and they had identified a leader, but thought, well, they just started not that long ago. They're covering, I don't know if they have the time. And then they stopped themselves and they said, you know what, I'll just ask them. Instead of being that block to say, well, is this person's going to waste the time? Or no, they're too busy to do that, right? All of those things, just ask them,
Yeah.
right? Would they want to commit their time to getting development right now? Right? Is that important to them? And in this situation, that person said yes, and they're going to be in boot camp this fall. So that person felt like it was important enough to them that they can commit the time because they want to be a better leader. And their actual manager identified that they need to be a better leader in the space.
Yeah. And doesn't that all go back to culture?
Yeah. It does.
Because we all want to be champs of culture, but are we willing to do the action to be champs of culture? And I say that because have we normalized that developing leaders is a critical part of our culture?
Yeah.
And when I hear people go like, oh, I don't know, we have time. Then I go, the answer to that is no, we haven't.
Yeah.
But once again, it doesn't mean that it has to stay like that.
Yes.
This is the opportunity that you get to say, you know what, I need to move from thinking that we're going to be champs in the future, but not taking the action to actually get there. And that really comes down to part of that, like recognizing, like I can be a great leader, but even I need more development. So I normalize this and take out the barrier by being like, I'm doing some development. in whatever way, shape, or form that looks for us.
Yes. Champions don't just say I've won, right? And that's it for me. Right?
I've won, I'm done.
Right, exactly. No, they keep pushing, right? They keep
Yeah.
pushing. They want to break their own record, right? They want to compete here and compete there. They're always challenging themselves to be better until they retire, right? And then they want to challenge themselves in another area. So it's always, when I think about leaders who are at this point of like, I'm already a great leader, I don't need to be developed. I started to think, are you thinking about retirement in the next year? Because like that's what it says to me. It says to me that I really am no longer looking at development for myself. I'm looking at development for others, because I'm not going to be here in the next year. Versus some people are like, I don't need the development, but they plan on still having many years in their career.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that differentiates from not developing, and we recognize that we go through periods of like, right, we learn, we kind of like learn, and we need to do, and we have a period of time where we need to kind of like just practice.
Right.
But then we also have like another period of learning and then practice.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm not to confuse this with, right, there are moments where our development probably appears less active than some of the very active periods.
Right. Exactly.
So it's still this flow, but what does that look like?
Yeah, that's really important, because in all areas of development, you really do need this practice and reflection time. But as you become more senior in your career, or let me just even say, not necessarily more senior in your career, but as you gain skills over time, right, that practice time might actually be a lot longer, because you need more opportunities, you need to see projects through, that type of thing. So that you are still in development during that time. You're just practicing and reflecting.
Doing something.
You're doing, right? You're acting, you're doing, you're moving forward versus being stagnant.
Which really goes into the second part of what we've talked about with it's time to do something. That means you're committed.
Yes.
Like, what does that commitment look like to be a champ?
How do you shift your mindset that you are fully committed to your mission of X, right? Like for us, our mission is to transform the way leaders lead in food, right? So how are we really committed to that message, right? If you're committed to strengthening your team and being better leaders, how are you doing that? Right? What actions do you need to take to give your team those skills, to have them practice it? Are there avenues of reflection and community development? How are you committed to doing something?
Yeah. And it's really interesting how in the QA Magazine survey, one of the primary goals of leadership development that was expressed by food safety professionals that's needed is leading change effectively.
Ooh, yeah.
And I think that ties in right here with commitment.
Yeah, I think so too.
And yes, there are many different factors that play into that, but right, leading change isn't like we don't understand what's supposed to happen. I mean, yes, that can be part of it, but the part that most people know is right, like 80%, 70, 80% of goals are never realized.
Yes.
Projects are never finished. That is commitment. That is leading change effectively.
Right, exactly. Commitment through conflict, commitment through uncertainty, right? Like, again, going back to the champ, right? There's times where it's like, man, I just tore my ACL, right? Am I really going to be able to compete a year from now? No, I'm committed to this. I'm committed to get back out there. So I'm doing the work to get there, even through that difficulty.
Yeah. And, we even have clients who they're like, we are in the middle of a reorg. And wow, that uncertainty is really tough for our team. But we're committed to helping them continue to develop skills so they can navigate through it easier.
Yes.
And right? It's not about pulling back when people are in the most need for that connection and the learning, especially of soft skills.
I was just about to say that, like during the time of like turmoil, that's when you talk more about it. That's when you do more actions. That's when you give people more skills or lean really heavily into that practice. Like that's when you are doing the most, is during this time of conflict or resistance or, uncertainty, which
Mhm.
comes with all change.
So with that, Tia, so the question I have that comes to mind is, how do leaders understand the difference between being distracted by like
Mm.
things that are happening like that versus what is purposeful refocusing and when is
Ooh,
that needed?
that's good.
Because we hear a lot of times, right, where people are like, well, we didn't finish that because the company priorities shifted
Mm.
or
Yeah.
this happened. And so we
Yeah.
just left all those projects goals to the wayside.
Yes. I think honestly, I think it comes back to commitment and what are you committed to?
Hmm.
And a lot of times people, especially by the time that you are at middle manager and you're doing a lot of the execution, you sometimes lose what the true commitment of the organization is. And so it seems like there's shifting of projects or there's shifting of things that you need to do, or these projects kind of falling off. But when you really look at it, right, where is the commitment of the organization? What are they truly committed to this year or over the next 3 years or 5 years? If you don't know that, I encourage you to find that out today, right? This week, find out what your organization is truly committed to, and then shift when that is needed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's some times where we're committed to X and we thought this project was going to be great to move X forward. But then we get into it and we determine we're not going to get as big of a bang for our buck as this project over here. Well, we might need to pivot, right? We might need to purposefully refocus on something that will give us a bigger bang for our buck because that's where we are. That is what I would call purposefully refocusing versus like getting distracted on, ooh, that might make us a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But is it really connected to what we're committed to? You
Yeah.
know, because sometimes in scenarios where it's like, ooh, this will make us a lot of money. It will make us a lot of money if we stop buying coffee for our teams. We'll save a lot of money there. Or it will save us a lot of money if we stop doing the annual leadership development, right? Or we stop doing this every year and switch it to every 2 years. That might save the organization some dollars, right? And you might be looking for some dollars. But what are you committed to?
Yeah.
Right?
And
Or
I
if
think
we're
and I think the more our workforce shifts in terms of generational changes,
Oh
the
yes.
more this is going to matter.
Yes.
Because I
Agreed.
think in the past with command and control, when people were like, we're shifting, people were like, yes, sir,
Okay.
yes, ma'am, shift.
Right. Right.
Because we were so driven by, well, I just need a job and a paycheck.
Yeah.
And now with the shift of people going, where many more people are concerned about cultures before they even interview with an organization.
Yes.
They are looking for companies that right
Mm-hmm.
mission driven, and if their mission changes, if those values shift, if it feels like the interpretation of those are shifting, people are like, we're out.
Right. Yeah. And they feel it, where it's like, this just doesn't feel right.
Yes.
It doesn't make me feel good to show up every day.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make me feel good interacting with my team because I can't provide them with X and they've had X for so many years. Like that's when you are getting off your mission and you're getting distracted when people start not feeling good or feeling right. Like you start hearing this terminology come up because we're distracted by something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that takes us away from being able to do something.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think all of us, no matter where you are, we think about a future that's brighter or different than where we are today.
Yeah.
And clearly, the only way that's going to happen is if we actively do something
Mm-hmm.
different.
Mm-hmm. I think there's also a difference you can tell between being distracted and purposefully refocusing. Is that being distracted, you're not doing anything really. Right. You find yourself either spinning or having unnecessary meetings, or you can't quite make a decision because of something. You might be distracted, right? Because it's not aligning to your greater purpose, to your greater mission. But when you refocus, you're like, ooh, yes, that's right. Let's go do.
Yeah. And I think sorry, the part why I'm laughing about it, it reminds me of like when we do kappas and the canned answer of either we're going to measure more or we're going to retrain.
Oh, yes.
That's distracted action. That's not action that's actually moving anything forward.
No.
That is just makes us feel like we're doing something, but y'all know that's not worth it. And that just adds to the bottom line for cost. And that is clearly not what we're here to do.
Right, exactly.
Versus being purposeful in how we are addressing those next actions. And the same thing happens. We've seen that with clients when they're thinking about what development looks like. When we help them move from, we're just going to do another training. Like we need to do a food safety culture training versus we're going to be purposeful on like, what does culture look like, feel like, mean to not only us as senior leaders, but like other people, middle managers, frontline team members, like looking at that more purposefully to be able then to take appropriate action to be champs.
Right, exactly. And I mean, if you're listening and you've worked with us before, like we have told clients, we don't think you need to do another workshop, right? Like we do workshops. It's a part of our business, revenue. And we will tell our clients, a workshop, you don't need another workshop, right? Like we're at the point that we need to do. So what are you committed to? Right? What are you committed to doing? How do we focus here? Because our job and what we want to do is shift and make those change. And so therefore we have to be doing something. And just doing workshops or and again, they have their place, right? It's the reason why we do workshops because they are a part of development. But if you find yourself constantly training, retraining, or doing workshop after workshop after workshop, at some point, this is no longer an action. You're just distracted.
Yeah. Right?
Or procrastinating to go to the next spot.
Yeah. And I think that's why even on our online training, yes, we have training, online training, but it also has continued learning built in. Yes. That's part of the difference because that's being purposeful in what we're doing versus just not. Yes. We are moving from thinking about being a champ to like the actions that help you be a champ.
Right. Exactly.
But it really takes this first step.
It does.
And I think that's one of the things that we find get in the way of like when it's time to do something. Anybody out there, have you ever hesitated like, oh, I don't know if I'm just ready or like, I know that's the first step, but I haven't done it yet.
Yeah. The first step is hard. The first step is one of the hardest steps. Right? A step into the unknown, a step into, man, is this really going to be worth my time? Right? Is it a distraction or is it purposeful? Like just that first step to be able to say, yes, it is worth my time, or no, it's not. So I'm going to pivot. Right? But you have to take that first step. You have to do something.
And that is the hardest part. Yeah. So Tia, right, we didn't get here from just like doing nothing. Right. In this space. And I can still remember here personal story of a friend in food industry. I know you might be out there listening. When we were talking about coaching and like coaching others in this space, like I'd been talking about it and like all the parts. And finally one day we're in the car, there are a group of us, we're going somewhere, and she's like, tell me the day you're going to start. Tell me the day.
Wow.
I was so lucky to have somebody in my corner like that, but that was part of what I needed to do to take the first step. All the other stuff I was doing was kind of like that distracted action. Yeah. Like it's not that it wasn't helpful, but it wasn't purposeful. And so to have to be like, what's that first step? And we've had that same thing even as we've worked with clients where we're like, whether it's entering into a new relationship or talking with their team different. Like we get it. That first step is hard.
Yes.
But once again, you want to be the champ and act like a champ. And we're here to help you take that first step.
Yeah. Because really it's your time. Exactly. It's your time and you really are worthy, right? You're worthy of being a better version of yourself in a year. in
Yeah.
6 months.
Yes.
You know, like you are worthy of being in that culture that you can picture. You just have to take that first step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's us creating what we want versus letting this external environment dictate where we think we are.
Right, exactly. And that really is the first step to empowerment, right? It's the first step to influence. It's the first step to all of the leadership skills, right? It's one of the reasons why we start with mindset, and why we start with the concepts of boot camp, because it's really around how do I take a look at myself and how do I really take that first step as a leader?
Yeah, these essential parts of like self leading so that we can lead others. And
Yeah.
believe me, we get it. It's hard.
Hmm.
Man, I've been in that spot too where I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
With clients who are like, oh, I haven't done it yet. I haven't done it yet. Oh, believe
Right.
me, we have lots of questions we ask them
Right.
because we've been there too. But the thing is for me, when I get in that spot, and even the thing that I do with clients is I'm like, okay, you can either sit here and be like, it's hard, but I also want, we also need to recognize then that we are actually playing victim here,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yes.
And taking that first step is hard. Sometimes we can sit back and be like, oh, no, step into who you are and being
Yes.
that champ. Don't sit back here and be like, oh, I don't know. What if it doesn't turn out? A million things could happen.
Yes. Yes.
Until you take the first step, you never know exactly what's going to be the next step forward.
Exactly. Exactly. You know, I think that also flow into this role of accountability,
Mm-hmm.
right? As you are working on doing something, taking that first step, having a support system. And I love the story that you talked about with your friend, where your friend was like, okay, when are you starting? Tell me the date you are starting.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They are holding you accountable to your commitment. You have made the commitment. This is what I'm going to do. This is what you said is important. As an accountability partner, when's the date?
Yes.
When do I need to call you? When do I need to visit your website? When do I need to do this? Because I'm looking for it.
Mm-hmm. And the best part was the message in there was actually because I care about where you're going.
Yes. Yeah.
That I'm going to help you be the accountability partner that you need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's one of the roles that Catalyst plays, right? Like we said a little bit earlier, sometimes we're like, a workshop, that's not what you really need right now. Let's talk about what actions you need to take. How do you actually move your culture forward? And you need that from an accountability partner. You need your accountability partner to say, okay, let's take a step back. Are we being distracted? Or, okay, it seems like you haven't moved forward. Let's put a date down, right? Who do you need to talk to? What resources do you need? And how can I help support that?
Yeah, we all have drift.
Mm-hmm.
We have drift away from, the things that are our priorities, the things that are right. We've all seen it with standard work.
Yeah.
It's the same in our goals and our priorities and what we're doing. And so having something that regrounds us in this is what I want. This is where I'm going. And this is what I committed to doing.
Yeah.
Like it's even the people we think are the most successful. So whether that's I don't know, Simone Biles or Beyonce or I don't know, insert names of people that you're like, I can't believe what they have accomplished.
Yeah.
That's because they have a village of people around them to help stay on track.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. Because, we are busy, right? And we have things going on, and it's a lot to even remember. You need those accountability partners around you. And sometimes, right, we get tired and we're like, I really just want to sit on the couch. But you need that accountability partner to say, like, okay, you can take some downtime. When are we going to connect again?
Yes.
When are we going to get back on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think exploring, because sometimes when we take a step back from something that we know that we want, there's obviously something more going on.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the other things happening that's keeping us from being able to step fully into this future that we are dreaming about?
Yeah.
And having someone be there to ask those questions. And that's why in our programs, we have a lot of practice and reflection, because it's not always about driving home the dates.
Right.
I know being in the food industry, sometimes it's all about, will it be done by Friday? Or are we going to be the new line running in 2 months?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's control and command kind of thing. Like just driven by that, which can be important. but
Hmm.
the reflection of why are we here again? Why is it delayed? What
Yeah.
part is going on? Like those are parts that are really important to explore.
Yeah. And you're really talking about leadership, right? And those leadership skills. And that is just so different than the technical side of our brain, right? It's so different the way that we manage projects and processes and technology. That is so different because we're working with people.
Mhm.
And so, how we practice, how we reflect, how we show up, right? Like that is completely different than how we're thinking on the technical side. Like I always giggle when people talk about culture and people, and they're trying to use the same tools that we use in problem solving and risk assessments and
For
HACCP
sure.
and all of these things. And I giggle because I understand because I am that technical person. And in theory, right? You're like, yes, this should work, but you're talking to people that might not have seen a risk assessment before or
Mhm.
done one or understand the ins and outs of that process. So some of the nuances around it, or I guess I should say the people aspect of it around it, is lost because we're trying to use a process and we're sort of eliminating the fact that we need these people skills in order to execute it properly. And if we
Yeah.
don't have those people skills, right, then we can't lead
Yeah.
effectively.
Yes. And I could go on a tangent because the more we rely on automation and software and machine
Mhm.
learning and all those other things to help us in our work, the more we need people to like bolster up and level up on leadership and human skills
Yeah.
because otherwise we'll just be talking to each other through like our smartphones.
Right.
That's
Yes, it's
that's not,
true.
and I have not heard anybody say that's the world that they want.
No,
But
no.
but so that accountability, right, of like growing these leadership skills, and right, we want to be a champ, we need someone to hold us accountable.
Right, exactly. We have our coaches, right?
Yes. And one of the things I'm most excited about for this fall boot camp cohort with what we have going on is it's the first time we've been able to actually create. And I know you're probably wondering, like, why didn't you create it before? That's why we stepped up into this. Is a specific community just for our boot campers. Because one of the
Yes.
things they always say that they love the most is group sessions,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because last week, if we shared this is what we're working on, you can bet someone's going to ask you about it in the next week
Oh,
on
yes.
what was happening.
Yes.
And so now we even have the group chat for the community so that they can keep
Mhm.
sharing through the week of what's happening within just the cohort. So I'm
Yes.
super excited because we have people in community and we have people who kind of follow community, but this is a nice intimate space that's private for people to really share in a different way and hold each other accountable because
Yeah.
that's what we need, a group of peers to help us also
Mm-hmm.
be better.
Yeah, it's to help make sure that you get those skills because we all know, right? Like we've been through leadership training, right? Most of us have done some type of leadership training, some type of leadership development.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that are effective are the ones where we're actually able to do the work and practice and reflect and use
Yeah.
community, right, in order to bounce ideas and learn from one another. Like having all of those aspects is really important to actually making that skill a competency for us. And
Mm-hmm.
it's ongoing, right? It's not a one and done. It's not a 4 hour training that you set through and then, woo, I can influence anything and everything, right? No, it's about practicing, reflecting, asking, woo, this didn't really work in this situation. How's it worked for others? What are other ways that people have influence in this situation? That's
Mm-hmm.
where real growth happens.
Yeah. And I love, let's see, we had a boot camper who, when we think about wanting to be a champ, they knew it was hard for them to build relationships because they felt really busy with all the work stuff that they had. And
Mm-hmm.
so through being in boot camp and learning the 3 P's about building and nurturing relationships, right? I love when they came back to us and they were like, I have people coming all the time to talk to me,
Right.
but not just about like how's the weather, but really about sharing about what's happening and asking questions. And like it was a next level of relationship for this person because in our group we asked them, where are you at, what are you doing, what have you tried, what have you noticed,
Yes.
but they were willing to take the first step. They were
Yeah.
willing to get commitment. They were willing to make sure their leader was there to support them. Even if they weren't actively supporting them, they said, good, go do it.
Right. And I love this example, Jill, because this turnaround of I really can't get things from people to okay, people are talking to me. I might have to even just think about like how to even manage that time. Like that happened in a week, right? That
Mm-hmm.
happened from us doing our module, our group session to I'm going to practice it this week. And
Yeah.
that's why it's so important. And for people who've talked to us about boot camp and different formats of boot camp, that's why it's so important to have that time of practice and reflection,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that really falls into this accountability piece where you have to practice these concepts, right? You have to fail at it. You have to learn about yourself. You have to learn about your team. And that's just so important. And I love this example that you give because that turnaround was in a week. It was
Yeah.
like amazing for that person and also amazing for me, at least, to watch and see this progress happen. It was very exciting
Mm-hmm.
to be a part of and just be able to watch. And like that person has done something, right? They decided to make a change, do something different, and they were able to benefit from that outcome.
Yeah. And I love, we had another boot camper who really has taken a new role in their organization where they are, subject matter expert. And they were before, but now they're kind of the next level of subject matter expert for a broader part of their organization. And they really wanted to be seen as a thought leader and an expert voice. But they
Mhm.
inherently were kind of like many of us, like me, introvert. And so we are often, as an introvert, or I guess the way that I typically will show up is I like to observe and kind of see what's happening
Mhm.
before I use my voice.
Yeah.
But in our many of our traditional organizations and those structures, when people hold back, others will see that as timid or that they might not
Mhm.
be the expert.
Mhm.
And I love that they came to boot camp to say, how do I move forward to this goal that I have of being this thought leader and expert in this space?
Yeah.
And really, it was about helping them build the confidence and helping them be authentic to who they are, but also sharing that they can use their voice in this way and still be authentic to who they are and serve
Right.
themselves.
Yes.
And that was really about mindset and
Yeah.
leadership presence and being open to ask people for feedback. Like, I'm
Mm.
going into this meeting with a goal to do this. Can you give me feedback on
Yes.
how well that comes across?
Yes. That's action.
Amazing. They were willing to take action. And
Mhm.
I love that this person not only has done this within their organization and working on it, but they have done it in industry association meetings where
Mhm.
they've been asked to step in on behalf of their organization to be the expert.
Yeah.
And
Isn't it
how it has
amazing?
shifted how people around them, right, see that coming through.
Yes. Isn't
Yeah,
that amazing? I mean, like
love
boot
it.
camp is 14 weeks. An
Mhm.
hour of your time is group session, right? We have 10 minutes or less of online of an online module. And like this is the impact, right? From this person feeling like I want to step up, but I don't know how, to I've gained these skills, I'm taking action, and now I am seen as a subject matter expert, even in industry meetings, right? Leading
Yeah.
industry projects and teams and committees. Like, that's a huge shift, right? And when you talk about who am I going to be in 6 months or a year, that person is someone different, right? Closer to the person they want to be in just 14 weeks. But now, right? 6 months down the road, 3 months, 6 months down the road, how are you thriving? How are you leading differently? Right? Like you've done something, this person did something and moved forward and continues to do, right? And that's
Yeah.
what I love about Catalyst. We're here to support you through your journey
Yeah.
and make sure, right, that you are continuing to add skills, practice, and reflect.
Yeah. And I love that it's people who are willing to do the shift from I'm
Yeah.
thinking about what can be different. I'm doing, activity, but maybe it's not quite getting me where I need to be to like, I'm going to actively be the champ. I'm going to actively step into this to who I can be. because we
Yeah.
all have way more potential than we ever even dreamed that we have. And
Yes.
by doing it, by like overcoming barriers, whether it was, theirs or some that they
Mm-hmm.
perceived were being put on them,
Mm-hmm.
it was this importance of like, I'm committed. This is big enough for me to say, I'm committed to doing the work.
Yeah.
They all were willing to take the first step, and
Mm-hmm.
they stepped into accountability, like a
Yes.
group that of like peers and of us for coaches, because we have coaching check-ins with people as well to say, how is this going? What are you getting out of it? Because if you're not, let's talk about how we make it, because you're going to walk away going, I can't believe what I all got out of boot camp. And if you don't, then we have other questions. But
Exactly.
that's why we have the coaching check-ins.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So really our call to action, right? To do something for you, for your leadership, for your organization, for yourself, right? How committed are you to becoming a better leader and helping others become better? How committed are you to that?
Yeah.
Do your
Yeah.
actions say that you're committed?
And really sit with that, because often we think, especially in our technical space, in the food world, we think, oh my gosh, I either can learn about this new equipment or learn these new techniques or learn this new information, whether it's regulations or software or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
or I can do development, leadership development.
Can do both.
We can do both.
We must do both, right?
We
We
have
must.
to if we want to drive forward.
Exactly. Exactly. There's room and space for both. And if we look at the great leaders that we have, they do both.
Mm-hmm. And a majority of senior leaders and HR leaders want leaders to be developed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you're thinking, I'm not sure they support me, you can do this.
Mm-hmm.
You can do something to be in the space that you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to do it alone.
No. And if you don't know where to start, right, you have two people right here that can help you start, right? That can be a part of that journey with you, because we are committed to our mission of helping leaders transform into better leaders and be their authentic selves. Like, we are here. We're here and committed. And we hope you are too. And we want you to think about, right? Like, is this something that is important to you and important to your team?
Mm-hmm. It's your time. Since we're talking about champs and I have a hockey family, like I go back to Miracle, the movie, right?
Oh, yes.
The 80 Olympics for hockey, right? Like, this is your time.
It is.
So all you have to do is step up and take it.
Oh, yes. That's it. Right? Equip yourself with the skills you need to be that champ. And we talked a little bit about boot camp, right? Boot camp is kind of thrown throughout because, right, like, it's a part of how we help people do something. And you might be wondering, man, how do I take that first step? Well, boot camp is coming up. It's starting in a couple of weeks. We really are only almost 2 weeks from it. We start on the 12th, on Thursday, the 12th of September. And we would love to have you there, taking that first step and really experiencing it for yourself. Right. And these stories of, wow, I've had this change in the way people show up within a week, right? Or how people see me at the end of the 14 weeks. We want that for you. So we would love for you to join us this fall. You can find out more information on our website or reach out directly to us on LinkedIn, on our email. We will help you get signed up because we want you to be a better version of yourself. By December, we want you to be a better version of yourself. We want you to be pushing your culture forward. So we encourage you, take that first step with us.
Absolutely. And we appreciate you being here and talking about how you can be the champ of yourself.
Yes.
Of course, we will be back here same time, same place next week for more Real Talk.
Yes, and we hope that you join us.
Yep. Until then, make it a great week.
See you then.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.